Shabbat Shalom. I think it's fitting that we celebrate Juneteenth not too long after Pesach and Shavuot. This Shabbat, we are honoring Juneteenth, the date that commemorates the liberation of Black people from slavery in this country. As we know from our own ancient history, some of which we witness in today's portion, the effects of slavery have a lasting impact. Our people were fortunate enough to be able to leave the country in which we were enslaved and go to a promised land where we could be truly free. But for Black people in America, they continued to live in a country where they were oppressed and lived under laws that for many made their lives little better than that of slaves. While much progress has been made, it's important for us to acknowledge the reality that systemic racism continues to exist in our country. And one of the ways it manifests is in the unfair treatment of people of color by our legal and judicial system. And this has resulted in the mass incarceration of people of color. Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote the important book Caste, has a great metaphor for us as Jews in relationship to this reality. She says that when you buy a house, you are not responsible for what caused the problems in the house that you bought, but you become responsible for taking care of the house and fixing the house that you now own. We may not be responsible for all the original causes of the racist system that exists in this country, but we are now certainly part owners of this country, and we must take responsibility that is ours for fixing what's broken. Our own Racial Justice Action Group and our own GBIO group is working to make some changes. Reality is that our system is broken. We spend more money on punishing people than we do on providing services and educating and training people. We have a legal system that treats people differently based on where they live and the color of their skin. If you're a teenager living in the suburbs, you are much more likely to be put in a diversion program or being given a warning than of getting put into the juvenile detention system. And once you're incarcerated, no matter how much you have changed for the better, the system makes it very hard to get reintegrated back into society. Our speaker today is someone who has experienced firsthand the effects of this injustice and has served 28 years in prison. But the thing that I believe that's most important for you to know about him is that in spite of spending 28 years in the dehumanizing environment of a prison, he is not bitter. In fact, he is a deeply caring, good soul, a real mensch. He has dedicated his life since leaving prison to helping others. How is this possible? While in prison, he got involved with a restorative justice program and he was transformed by it. So much so that while still incarcerated, he created a new program called the Transformational Prison Project, which he is the director of. He also co-founded the Youthful Offender Coalition, a program which supports individuals who are convicted while under the age of 18. And he also created a program called Men Exploring Their Own Obstacles, a program that addresses toxic masculinity, rape culture, and sexism. In addition to being a lead facilitator at Transformational Prison Project, he's led restorative justice circles, mentored youth through the Roxbury District Court, and many, many other things. He's a member of Harvard Kennedy School's Roundtable on Racial Disparities. He facilitates circles for first-year law students at Harvard Law School. It's now my honor to present Armand Coleman.
Thank you, Paul, for that wonderful introduction. So I won't even go into introducing myself. You did a great job. All right. I got a strong voice, Paul. People can hear me. All right. Cool. Thank you. So thank you again, Paul, for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me here today. I'm very honored, and I'm like literally don't even know what I want to say now because I'm moved to say some different things, right? Um, to the two young gentlemen that are going off to, I mean, I just want to congratulate you both. It's just, I know it's an exciting time being 18 and being 17. I was there before. But I want to share with y'all about somebody, his name is Robert Littles, right? That's what I think I want to share with y'all today. And Robert Littles was 17 when Robert Littles committed a homicide. And Robert Littles was sentenced to life in prison. And Robert Littles came on and be probably the poster child for the restorative justice programming inside, helping build it, piloting it, as well as becoming the premier like focus person. He's the first person to go through the program intensely, become a leader of the program, and run the program inside. And we would not be sitting here today as an organization, right? If he didn't like one of nine, right? But he did the work. So, and Robert Littles didn't just do the work. So Robert Littles went in at 17. He was part of a drug gang. He was basically a child. At 16, he was brought here. Some legal people even say it was kidnapping, right? And he was working with a notorious drug gang right here in Boston. One of the most notorious drug gangs ever in the Northeast. He was the youngest member of this drug gang, and he ended up being sentenced to life in prison, like I said, for retaliation. And his incarcerated consisted of him being more than 2 decades in a maximum security prison. So he went straight from the streets to incarceration to maximum security prison, and then he landed in MCI Norfolk. But he spent 2 decades in maximum security prison, over a decade in solitary confinement, and he was considered like one of the worst people that the Department of Correction. This is documented. I don't know how to tell you this. You could Google it. You could contact the department they want to reveal. But he was considered one of the worst ever in the Department of Corrections. But he came to Norfolk, MCI Norfolk, where this work started, which is the largest prison in Massachusetts. And he got involved in our program, and it basically changed the trajectory of his life. It didn't only change the trajectory of his life, it changed the trajectory of RJ, or restorative justice, as it has been exhibited throughout these institutions and in the state itself, right? Because the restorative justice programming that's really happening in the courts now, with the Transformational prison just got the contract for, and in neighborhoods is literally fueled by people inside starting it first, like, and they're working on people who are considered the most incorrigibles. Usually restorative justice is like utilized on what people would say are light cases, like graffiti, something that's, we at the Transformational Prison Project focus on the people who are the most incorrigible ones. So if you go to MCI Norfolk, the prison is filled with people who are lifers. And is it hard to hear me? Oh wow. Okay. I stand like this, right? All right, good. All right. So MCI Norfolk has the most lifers and long termers. So it basically means the prison who has the most people who have committed loss of life crimes. But also it has the prison with the people who committed the most sexual offense crimes, right? So it's really a unique prison. And it's only the only community prison left. So I've seen the theme of community here. It's the only community prison left in the States. So literally, when you go to Norfolk prison, there's no locked doors. Some prisoners have their keys, and prisons are encouraged to be things that you're not encouraged to be in a normal incarcerated situation. For instance, let me just go back to Robert Littles. Robert Littles was a politician. He was a leader in his faith, and he was a voted in unit representative for over 70 people. and he led recovery programming. He literally had multiple hats that he developed over the time he was in MCI Norfolk. But the only reason he was able to develop those is because he actually went through our programming. And our programming is something that actually says, you know what? We believe that hurt people hurt people. We believe that's even more applicable if the person does a crime that raises to the level of like homicide, right? Which most of our do, but it makes even more applicable if the person commits the crime as a child. We don't believe that no child commits a crime is incorrigible, should be thrown away, and that's it. So this year we're going to be laser focused on youthful, we don't even like the term, but people who are incarcerated as emerging adults and they matured, quote unquote, while in incarceration. These are men and women who went in at 15, 14, 16, and they served 30 to 40 years and they're coming out when they're 40 years old, 50 years old, even 60 years old, having never even just simply put, having even taken a bath. Just something that's simple to help you develop your sensory system is take a bath. Many women and men are like literally sitting in these sensory deprived environments, and they're not even, to do something as simple as that. That's just a simple, basic one that we can all probably relate to. But the goal now is that the law has been changed, and this is a Juneteenth thing, right? So it's important that I want to bring this up because I could read you the Constitution amendment that made slavery abolished, right? The thing that happened, it wasn't enforced. It wasn't enforced because people didn't know about it. And people didn't know about it in the South because they were enslaved and they were incarcerated. I mean, they were enslaved. I'm just gonna say enslaved. They were enslaved, they were enslaved. And they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know their rights, right? So what Robert Littles did, and Paul spoke earlier about the Youth Offender Coalition, in conjunction, the same thing that stopped the constitutional, not the Constitution, but the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot incarcerate children for life. You cannot sentence a child for life because they're not incorrigible, and you can't say that. So what happened is all the states had to conform to it, just like with what we're talking about today, Juneteenth. But most states conformed like this. Okay, Robert Littles has life in prison. We're not going to give him a natural life sentence. We're going to just give him 80 years. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But Massachusetts was different. Massachusetts at the time, we had the second black elected governor in the nation, right? Deval Patrick. And he was leading the state at the time, so I'm going to give him the credit. But they went different. They said anybody who's been convicted of a crime under the age of 18 literally automatically qualifies for parole or release after 15 years if they could show, right, that they've been rehabilitated, recovered, and all that. So that changed the trajectory of how things went in Massachusetts. And eventually, Robert Littles, even though he was considered one of the worst, he was one of the first people paroled as a person convicted of a child in Massachusetts. Like literally, he was one of the first people. He came home and he did great work. He started working immediately with a community organization called Communities for Restorative Justice that does actually do cases here as well. He actually led the volunteer development here. And he left that organization just last year and began working exclusively with the Transformational Prison Project. So I got a lot to say about Robert Littles because if you didn't know, Robert Littles is me. That's the time I actually served my sentence under the name of Robert Littles. I was convicted at the age of 17, sentenced to 28 years in prison, the whole story. And now I built a tool or programming, or I could say an organization that is literally helping people who went into prison, usually 17, 16, 18, under the age of 21 now, right? And are coming out now as thought leaders, as community leaders, but they don't know how to transition back to society because they don't even know how to be, they're not even sensory matured. Like having never been in the rain, having never walked in grass, having never had adult conversation. I mean, never had a relationship, never had an ID, all the things that we take for granted. You know what I mean? I came in today, I was struggling with a rental car situation, right? And that's what we do with the show. I'm saying this because the community was the theme. But I had community members to help me. My brother Paul, who was a lawyer, right? Literally came to the Hurt Center like I was struggling. I made a serious mistake that none of y'all would probably make as an adult, right? And I was 51 years old, running the organization. I made a simple mistake that was causing me angst, right? Stress. And my brother came, legal background, diffused it, right? And now I'm here. The point is that the community, that's what we do. We build communities to help anybody with anything they need because it's not, let me back up a little bit, right? Because this is an exciting moment in time. I think that I'm just want to just draw a parable, right? There are thousands of people who are convicted as children that are behind bars. The Supreme Court has said you cannot incarcerate them for life. It's a pathway for them to come home. Legislation has said it. Every branch of government has said it, but they're still not coming home. They're still not coming home. And when they're coming home, what are they coming home? They're not coming home to community because they can't be in community. The thing is that the community I live in right now, I live in Boston. I live in Boston. The destruction I did was in Boston. The gang that I was a part of was from New York. They traveled to Boston and they caused destruction. I'm the only member from my gang or the only member that I know from Boston in that era who has come home and is able to live in Boston and actually build community in Boston because they can't afford to be in Boston, right? For one reason, right? But it's multiple reasons. But one of the principles of restorative justice is that you have to make amends to the community and the people you harmed. So literally, these men are going in, these women who are getting healed through our work, becoming healing leaders, and they're not even coming back to their own community they harmed. So it's like a real bigger issue that we're trying to solve. So we're trying to build programming for them. We're trying to build so people who actually come back to their own communities. Because if anybody know about Norfolk, you would say that you know that it's a beacon for just forward-thinking people who are incarcerated. I mean, I did work from everybody from Harvard to Mandela to organizations, everybody, that's what it is. It's a hotbed for people to come in and work. But these men and women come home, they literally can't go back to their communities. They have to go to somewhere where they could afford. But we try to build something where they could come back in and make amends and rebuild the communities that we destroyed. I mean, that's literally the fundamental principle and the long-term goal. But the thing is that everything that we're building at the Transformational Prison Project is built by me. It's informed by Robert Littles. It's informed by the men in Norfolk. It's informed by the men on my staff. We have 10 now, 8 of whom are formerly incarcerated. And it's the only program model that's being built by people who are actually formerly incarcerated. It's the only one that exists, and it's the only one that's working. And we have multiple layers. People don't understand what it went in to make me an executive, what it meant to make my noble executive, who's really one of the most notorious gang members ever in Boston. What it took to make Bobby, who was convicted of killing a cop, literally to turn his life around, and now he's leading programming all over the state. It was large investments in us, right? It came from our community, it came from our support network, and they believed in us. They seen the work we did inside, and they knew what we could do if we got out here. And we literally 4 years now, on our 5th year, just getting through it. And we're gonna build everything we need to build for everybody that's coming home in a way that's effective, based upon literally the program is gonna be built upon the anthology of the trauma of Robert Littles, who went through all our programming and seen literally step by step, day by day, minute by minute, everything that led to every crime he ever committed, as well as process every crime that was committed against him before he ever committed one crime. Because that's one thing we realized, that every child that I ever did circle, back up, anybody who was ever incarcerated as a child that I did circle with, literally they have enumerated to me hundreds of crimes that have been committed against them before they ever committed one crime. And now these are people that are going to spend the rest of their life under the supervision of a system. Literally, they'd never have a chance to be liberated. A lot of people don't understand the between liberty, freedom, and liberation. We try to make sure that all 3 layers are applicable and had for our people so they can actually succeed. I feel that it's unconstitutional that they was incarcerated for life, so we got to work to make them whole again. So that's what I'm committed to, because, and like Paul said, that's what drives me, because I had a community that did it for me. And the fact that I'm still here, right, tells me that it can work, and we got the model and the blueprint for it. So I don't know how much longer I'm supposed to be talking for, Paul, but I could go on forever. Yeah, I just wanted to say that slavery has been abolished, right? They say, right? But it's a constitutional exception to that. It said except servitude or someone duly incarcerated for a felony, period. So in these systems of prisons is the only place where you can legally incarcerate somebody, literally enslave them. It's the only place I get compensated for my work now. That's the only place I've ever been where I literally had to work for free. I mean, if I didn't work for free, it was a consequence. right? So it's like slavery has not been abolished. That's not true. I just want that to be, it's an exception to it, an exception to the people who are duly incarcerated with felony. So our goal is like just to like undo that. Yes. So I'll end with that. I want to thank everybody for like inviting me and listening to me. I really appreciate it. And I want to emphasize that a lot of people are supporting people that think they got solutions to the problem, but they don't. I mean, just look at it like this. The program is not the program. The system is already like in shambles and not working. We know that. But look at it this way. It's not working it was designed for adults and it's not working for adults. Now multiply that by 10 for me as a child coming out in a program that doesn't even have nothing. It wasn't designed for me. I didn't have a voice in it and it doesn't even work for me. And I'm probably the most successful parolee to have in Massachusetts that they could say, but literally the system doesn't work for me. The only reason it works is because I have a community around me that supports me. And now my community actually consists of the same people who supervise me, right? Other than that, it wouldn't be working. And that's like the power of restorative justice. Everybody that come in contact with us become our community, become our family. And that's just our trajectory and where we want to move. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.